So,
So I'll just give a small introduction and then we start. So good morning, everybody. And we are starting the interaction today with regards to the TRQ and how the same will be operated. So I'll just, all of you know, but still I'll give a background that the government of India in the recent times have started with a new vigor negotiating the free trade agreements with a lot of destinations, because what we understand that from the time of globalization we have now come to the time of bilateralism, and if we need to increase our exports, because our honorable Prime Minister Sri Narendra Modi last year had set a target of export of $400 billion, all of you know, and we are happy to say that our country has achieved that target and have crossed that target. We have achieved some $418 billion, which is some 5% more of that target. And of that, gem and jewelry sector was given around $40 billion, and we have achieved around $39.1 billion, which is also very commendable under the circumstances what we have faced. So to increase this, export target, maybe in 1 trillion in the next 3 years, that is what the government of India, I understand, is targeting with the services export. So if we are, so 1 trillion from us and 1 trillion from services. So if that is the target we need to reach in the next 5 years span, we have to rapidly ramp up these exports, to ramp up bilateral agreements in the consuming destinations will be one of the, I think, biggest policy initiatives that will be taken by the government. So the government of India has already started, and they have negotiated successfully with UAE. The agreement has been signed. We have already signed an agreement also with Australia that will be operative very soon, because they were waiting for the Australian elections. The elections have happened. Now that will be made operative, I think, in the next 1 or 2 months. And then negotiations are in very advanced stages with UK and Canada, and also with EU also negotiations are going on with new vigor. So with all these free trade agreements, in somewhere it is called comprehensive economic partnership agreement, like in UAE it is called India-UAE comprehensive economic partnership agreement, because it spans more than only commodity based agreements. It includes services, includes visas, everything. So that is a comprehensive economic partnership agreement. Similar kind of agreement has been done with Australia. Today we will be discussing with the India-UAE this comprehensive economic partnership agreement. For our sector, UAE is a very important destination. Around 40% of our exports goes to UAE. Of course, that acts as a distribution hub. But for us, this type of free trade agreement with UAE helps our sector to grow in a big way. Now, when this agreement was getting negotiated, at that point of time, from the Gem and Jewelry Export Promotion Council, we had given a proposal to the government of India that the raw materials should be cheaper. So that means the gold will be cheaper to our people. And then the finished goods, which will be going to UAE, will be having a lesser duty quotient there. So that has been done and that has been achieved. So we are thankful to the government of India, so that they have given a 1% leverage or 1% concession on the import duty of gold, which will be coming to India. So today we are here to discuss the procedural aspect of that tariff rate quota or TRQ, what government has brought in and how the clarification or notification is coming. We are very lucky to have here Mr. Moin Afaq from DGFT. So he is the one, I can tell you a secret, he is the one who have designed, this procedure, and of course a lot of discussion goes on, but finally that draft notification, he is the man behind that who have made it. So he will be here to answer our questions and also take us through the procedures and how it has to be followed, because in our trade, as it has come very new, so there is a lot of questions, people are facing a lot of issues. So understanding that, we have also requested the government to extend the last date of filing of this TRQ. And again, the Ministry of Commerce, we are thankful to them. They have extended it from 18th of May to 31st of May. All of you must be knowing. So this is the background on what today's interaction of this seminar will be happening on the TRQ, tariff rate quota, and the procedures thereof to get the benefit of this quota. And you will be also having the opportunity to ask the questions. I will request all of you to put the questions in chat, and once you put the questions on chat, we'll be trying to address those questions directly from Mr. Moin Afaq. So, sir, I open the floor to you. So now you can take it forward. Mr. Moin Afaq from DGFT.
Thank you very much, Mr. Executive Director, GJEPC, and thank you for the initial remarks. I also like to thank Mr. Duggal and Chitra Madam for organizing this webinar, which is very timely given that the deadline for the first 2 quarters for the application for TRQ for imports under 7108 and 7113 is approaching. So, in continuation to what Mr. Ray had stated, that India is re-looking at its international trade agreements and engagements, and accordingly, the India-UAE trade CEPA came into effect from 1st of April 2022. Now, the objective of any FTA is to not just increase our exports, also to incentivize or make our domestic industry competitive. In that light, this specific component of the agreement wherein TRQs are being given is with the intent of providing the actual manufacturers, the actual users of bullion with the inputs, the raw material at slightly concessional rates. In fact, GJPC had very vehemently opined that this should go to the actual manufacturers, to the actual 200 odd manufacturing clusters, the jewelry manufacturing clusters, so that and there is no intermediation as such, so that the benefit actually reaches the manufacturers and the businessmen in this line. So, as you are aware that there is a annual quota of 120 MTs for this financial year for import of bullion under head 7108. This 7108 includes 7108 1100, 7108 1200, and 7108 1300. This 120 metric tons of gold shall be allocated in 3 phases for this year. In the current phase, we are allocating for the first quarter as well as the second quarter. Thereafter, in September, we'll be processing the allocation for the third quarter of this financial year, and then thereafter the last quarter. Thereafter, from the next year, the allocation will be done in 4 quarters, and applications will be invited suitably. The objective of not having it in, say, one go for the annual period is that because the prices and the fluctuations are quite frequent in the metals, the precious metals market. So the concerned consumers can plan their consumption and accordingly to decide whether to avail the TRQ, etc. So to keep it dynamic, it is not. This again is based on the recommendations and suggestions of from the industry. Just a minute.
So, Mr. Afaq, see, some of the questions what we have got, we also have recommended, also have given a representation yesterday only. So I will just give you those questions, what we have got. One of the biggest questions what is coming from our people is, as it has been raised, that it is for manufacturers. Now, you know that in India, the manufacturing of jewelry happens through job work. So if that is the case, So everybody is asking that I am giving for job work. Can I apply? That is what people are asking.
Right. Thank you. So basically, this will depend on the compliance with the rules as notified. So as long as they can comply with the IGCR rules 2017. I'd like to pardon my ignorance on this specific fact because this is a taxation matter. So as long as they can comply with this IGCR rules, there shouldn't be any issues. So, Mr. Ray, with your permission, I'll just lay out the process of applications, also a short demo, and thereafter maybe we can try to answer the nuances, the finer details, the questions around the finer details.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Right. So, on your screen is the public notice with actual instructions. So, essentially, currently in this period, you can apply till the 31st of May. This date was extended to 31st of May. So, the conditions are that you have to be a jewelry manufacturer. Now, there is no specific legal definition of what is a jewelry manufacturer. So, essentially, the concerned foreign territory division as well as DGFT try to define it, saying that there should be an annual turnover of 25 crores over the last financial year. So basically, the average turnover in the last 3 years should be 25. So it could be say 20, 30, 25. So the average becomes 25. Secondly, they should be dealing in this specific HS code, like that is the finished jewelry, which comes under 7113. Next, there should be this has to be substantiated with the GST returns as well as CA certified certificate giving the financial returns, the details of these financial returns. The next important point to understand is that as per the extant policy of for imports under 7108, the imports are allowed only through the nominated agencies which nominated by RBI or by DGFT. So RBI has a list of 16 banks which they have nominated, and DGFT in turn has also nominated 8 odd agencies for imports under 7108. For the other code, we have recently in January we have notified the International Bullion Exchange, which is part of the Gift City operations at Gandhinagar. So it is a forward-looking agenda that wherein global exchange would be operationalized in India. However, they're still in the process. As of this morning, there was some news that RBI has given the concurrence. So we are hoping that the actual operations should start very soon. Currently, there is I don't as far as I am aware, there is no specific operation, but yes, the imports can also be effected through IFSC. There are specific nuances around this, that IFSC as such does not do the imports. Only the qualified jewelers listed on IFSC would be clearing the gold bullion through the exchange. There is a textual error in the customs notification that was issued, wherein they have mentioned IFSC, wherein however they should have mentioned for qualified jewelers through IFSC. So we have sought comments on this specific matter from the customs division as well as from the concerned foreign territory division, so that when suitably corrected will allow the qualified jewelers also to import. So in this case, the jewelry manufacturers will be importing through these nominated agencies or the subsequently on amendment the qualified jewelers. So this is slightly nuanced in the sense that TRQ is generally the imports happen through the direct importer. In this case, this is a kind of a sub-licensing procedure wherein the imports would be effected through the nominated agency on behalf of the jewel manufacturers concerned. So in this case, the TRQs that are to be issued would bear the IEC, the importer exporter code of the manufacturer as well as the nominated agency, right? All these the second point is that all these TRQs will be issued electronically, so there will not be any paper copies issued. Your details will be automatically transmitted to customs. Now, people who are aware of the advance authorization process or the EPCG process would know the concept of a co-licensee, as in there are more than one IEC. So in this case, there will be the manufacturer's IEC as well as the nominated agency's IEC, which will basically enable the nominated agency to file the bill of entry in reference to the TRQ on behalf of the manufacturer. This is an important point, so please take your time to understand this, that the IEC of the nominated agency as well as the manufacturer will be mentioned, and thereafter the imports, the bill of entry will be filed by the nominated agency. Now, there might be questions around it, that why have we created a complex system like that? It's not basically there are two parts to it. One is that the import policy does not allow direct jewelers, the manufacturers, to import. Secondly, the various stakeholders were of the view that if the imports are effected through nominated agencies, then they can bring in economies of scale, wherein the TRQs as allotted to say 10 different manufacturers can be clubbed together, and the imports can accordingly be affected by one of the banks or other agencies concerned. So that will give a better price point to the final manufacturer, rather than imports broken up by the and affected individually by the manufacturers. Right. So the summary point is that we are going to allot 60 metric tons of gold for imports to be effected on or before 30th of September of this year. The licenses will be issued electronically and transmitted to customs electronically. Thirdly, the imports would be, the bill of entry will be filed by the nominated agency, by the banks concerned, wherein the reference of the manufacturer would be mentioned. The last point is that they would be required to comply with the IGCR rules. Right. Second part to this is also that we have a limited TRQ under 711. Right. This HS code is specifically for articles of jewelry of gold, unstudded, studded with diamonds, etc. Now, the total quantum for this is 2.5 metric tons, which will be split into half, quarter, and quarter. This is not specifically for manufacturers. The manufacturer, jewelry manufacturer conditions are only for the other HS code 7108, wherein the raw gold comes in. So accordingly, this can any individual can also apply for transnational imports under this head. Right. So that for gold there are two HS codes, two tariff heads. One is 7108, where only the jewelry manufacturers can import. The 7113 is open for other importers as well. However, if you see, the quantum of imports under this specific head is quite diminished as compared to the raw gold. Right. So I'd now like to navigate to the DGFT website, and just a minute. I would kindly request the moderator to give the screen sharing permissions to Mr. Rajkumar Bansal. Somebody can kindly
He's just asking them.
Yeah.
Yes, we are doing it. Just keep some time.
Yeah. Please take your time. Thank you.
राज बंसल दे दिया ना?
हाँ, पैनलिस्ट में मूव कर लिया यहाँ पे नहीं, पैनलिस्ट में मूव कर लिया उनको मैंने. हाँ, he is there.
Yes. So he has joined. Mr. Raj Bansal, now you can share your screen. Yes.
Yeah, thank you for your patience. So basically, this is the DGFT website wherein you log in. I mean, with your username and password. For people who have not accessed the DGFT website, you basically have to click on login on the top right, or under My Dashboards also you can click, and thereafter log in with your specific credentials. If you don't have a login, then you can just register to start with, and so for somebody who's logged in for the first time, you would be required to link to your IC. So in order to link, there'll be a link, you have to click on that, and thereafter just key in your IC and authenticate with either a DSC or using Aadhaar e-sign. The Aadhaar would have to be for one of the directors, partners in the entity. The DSC could have been issued in the name of the authorized signatory also, besides the director partner. So accordingly, this was the landing screen. We are working with a test IEC just for demonstration purposes. So thereafter, right before I proceed, if at any point in time, if you have any issues or challenges, please reach out to the DGFT help desk, and you can always escalate the issue to myself, or use the services of GJEPC to escalate through their channels as well. The objective is to have as much participation as possible, so any issues we'll be more than keen to resolve, and to make this entire allocation process fruitful for the industry at large. Right. So help desk services are also available under services. You can either raise a ticket or you can call the help desk directly. Right. So now moving on, we navigate to the actual application process. So you'll have to first select the import management system under services. Thereafter, there are different tiles over here. Please ensure that you apply under tariff rate quota. Import, thereafter, apply for a TRQ is the link tile that you'll have to click on. We can start with a fresh application. So when you click on a fresh application, you would see that there are various drop downs. So you would have to select the India-UAE CEPA to start. There are various other TRQs also before I proceed, but the timelines for application under the other TRQs, for example, the India-Sri Lanka free trade agreement or the India-Nepal has expired, so you don't see that in this drop down. Right. So we select the India-UAE CEPA, we undertake that the details are correct, and we proceed on to the next tab. These details would be auto-filled because you're logged in with your IC tag. So thereafter, you can select the branch details, the actual place where you would be consuming the bullion that you're going to import. We proceed, and thereafter we enter the actual import HS codes, etc., the description. So in this case, it will have to be UAE. It cannot be any other country because we are talking about the imports under the specific agreement. The HS code can be keyed in. So as you are aware, there are other items also. Under India-UAE CEPA, we also have PP, PE, and PVC, and also copper, etc. So that is why accordingly you see chapter 39, which is related to plastics. Then you have the gold HS codes, and then you have chapter 74 for copper. For the audience over here, the relevant codes are under 7108. You can key in the details about the technical specifications could be, the gold of purity 99.5% or something like that. I'm sure the audience over here is more learned in these matters than I am. Thereafter, we select the quantity and maybe apply for 500 kgs. Metric tons utna to hai nahi pata. So yeah, 500 kgs. The currencies can also be accordingly any of the freely convertible currencies. In this case, maybe you can select UAE dirham. Now, and dal. So once you do that, based on the current exchange rates, the actual conversion will happen. So you just need to enter the, let's enter a realistic value for the 500 kgs. So that will be around 2.25 crores odd. 25. Right. Add import details. So you can also choose to add any other HS code 7108. You can probably also add say 71081200. Yes, is one of the participants is asking. So yes, we can choose 71081200 as well. 10 kgs maybe. Similarly, 5. You can enter say 5 crores. So there can be more than one line items in your application. We don't have an issue with that. This is the specific detail that has to be filled, wherein the nominated agency details. So as you can see, the drop-down provides a list of nominated agencies. Yeah, so you can see the 6 odd banks as notified by RBI, as well as MMTC, STL, etc. are also listed. So in this case, suppose we select, say, Yes Bank. And then you'll have to select the branch code of Yes Bank, wherein they have their operations. There are some questions. I will take it. So minimum quantity will have to be 5 kilos. That is one part of the question. Second is that you would have to select only one nominated agency. There cannot be multiple nominated agencies. So thereafter, we can see if we require a process for amendment of the nominated agencies details, that will have to take up subsequently. But as you understand, this is a paperless process wherein the systems will be the data is transmitted, the TRQ will be transmitted from DGFT systems to custom systems. So there are constraints at both ends. So basically, we cannot accommodate multiple nominated agencies in a single license. It's also problematic tracking the utilization in these cases. Right. So next, you would have to provide details of imports. This is not a mandatory field, so you can proceed further. You would also be required to add the past import details. This is part of a standard template. So this is again, you can skip it. Your values will come at 0. However, if you have had imports in the past, please fill in the actual details. Right. There are two parts to it. One is the imports made under license. The other is imports made in general and the turnover in the past. So these details have to be duly populated for as per the conditions, because the basic condition is that there should be an average turnover of 25. Next, you'll have to select the port. If somebody is asking whether you can choose USD, yes, you can choose any of the freely convertible currencies. It could be USD, yes. So you can select any of these freely convertible currencies. It doesn't have to be UAE dirham. It can be any of the freely convertible currency. You can invoice your transaction in euros, in dollars, any of that. It is governed by the RBI rules. There are no specific different rules in this case. The next page, please. Raj. Next. Yeah. So somebody is asking whether what should be the estimated value. So you can take it on the higher side, in the sense that whatever is the prevailing rate, uske hisab se aap bhar dein. There are no penalties for underutilization of the license. I mean, on value terms, quantity is what is expected that you would utilize, but you can enter the values on the higher side. Further, there is also a process of amendment or value enhancement subsequently. So the value of imports will have to be is the CIF value. So basically the landing cost, it is not inclusive of the taxes. The purpose of imports in this for 7108 will be actual user, because the manufacturers would be consuming this. This is a standard template, so any justification, whatever is you think is the justification, please add it suitably. Right, and then we enter these actual user, the actual area of where your factory or your consumption will happen. Yes, as I said, you'll have to estimate. The ballpark is that if you have 50,000, I think 55,000 per 10 grams, like say you can take a higher estimate of 60 lakhs per kilo or something like that, and accordingly proceed. As I mentioned, even if say you apply for on the higher side, there are no penalties. It's the quantity that is to be appropriately added. Please navigate to the next page. Yeah, so basically this is over here. आप इसको no कर, this is a canalized item, so आप yes कर दें. That is, this is through nominated agencies. This is a repetitive field, so we are not going to do the examination based on this specific field. So yes or no is not of relevance, but technically speaking, इसमें yes करके the details to be filled. Next, there are no supplies to the government, so all of this is not relevant to your specific application, but it's a part of the standard template. There's a question that is it same as advance authorization? No, it's not same as advance authorization, because advance authorization comes with an export obligation commitment. Over here, the duty saved is to be consumed at your end. There is no obligation to export. This is for domestic manufacture and domestic sale. Also, a question that like, can we have multiple applications? No, there will be only one application per IC that will be considered. On this specific page, where the attachments page, you are required to upload the documents in support of your manufacturing credentials, that is the GST returns and the CA certificate. Thereafter, once we'll just show you. While they're applying, there's a question: what would be the quantity that can be applied? The quantity is up to you. The allocation, I'll come to the allocation part. So let's just quickly do the undertake the fill the declaration that you're complying with the government rules, etc. And thereafter, when you come to a save and next, you'll be able to see the application summary. This is the last step. So you can see the summary. You can take a print of this, but please note that it's still, the application is still not submitted. Raj, please navigate that. Yeah, so as you scroll back, you will first be required to pay the fees. So the fees is basically 0.1% of your total CIF value. So for 1 crore of imports, you'll be required to pay 10,000. For 10 crores, it will be 1 lakh. And this is capped at 10 crores. So if you're importing for say 25 crores or 30 crores, the fees is capped at 1 lakh. So next you have the option to sign. Once you've signed the application, you can use any one of these options. Thereafter, you'll be navigated to the payment page. Once you made the payment, the file number will be automatically generated. Till the payment is confirmed, the file number will not be generated. So in this regard, sometimes what happens is the payment gateway, the response from the payment gateway is delayed. Till such time that your payment is not completed, your application would be shown as a draft. Sorry. It will show up in the draft, like for example, this is a draft. Once the payment is confirmed, the file number will be automatically generated, and you'd see it under your last 10 requests. So, right. So this will be the final. The file number will be a final reference, and you can track the status of your applications from here. Over here, like if you scroll down, you'll see that the status is in progress. In progress means that it is under examination. Some applicants, some participants have a question that's showing is in progress. Yes, because the last date of application is till 31st. So all the examination will be done after 31st May. So till such time the examination is completed, your application will continue to be in progress. It will take a week, 10 days to complete the application process, and thereafter the TRQs will be issued. So we are looking tentatively at say middle of June for the actual file to be approved or rejected, or whatever be the outcome. So once again, we'll just take the questions coming in. So somebody has that you paid the fees, so the file number would have been generated. You can see that it is in progress. So yes, it means that the file is under consideration. So the eligibility is based on the turnover criteria of 25 in the last 3 years, 25 CR. The next question is that can you have an IC as a merchant exporter? Yes, you can have an IC as a merchant exporter. You cannot export or import if you don't have an IC. So a lot of merchant exporters do export. In fact, around 40% of the exporters are merchant exporters. But in this specific case, the merchant exporter cannot avail the benefits. This is for jewelry manufacturers. The documents as required, minimum quantity, as I mentioned, is you should apply for a minimum quantity of 5 kilos. The final allocation is what we'll discuss subsequently. The documents to be uploaded are listed in the public notice. You'll be required to upload the GST returns as well as the CA certified document. The amount you are paying is not refundable. This is the government of India is taking the fees as part of its processing this thing. So if at a later date you are not considered for the allocation, there is no provision for refund of the fees that you paid. As I mentioned, the fees is capped at 1 lakh. So that is something that you have to take into account. The gold that is will be imported can be used for domestic purposes. There is no export obligation with this specific TRQ. It is not for SEZ units because SEZs in general can import. SEZs in general can import without the TRQ at whatever rates. Like the SEZ is basically a deemed foreign territory, so that the taxation matters under the SEZ are quite different. So I'm not sure why would an SEZ unit even bother about a TRQ. Somebody's mentioned that can I apply for 10 lakhs? Yes, you can, but the minimum application quantum is 5 kgs. So please, so there is a cap, there is a ceiling, like a floor on the quantity to be applied. So logically speaking, 5 kgs would cost you around 2.5 crores. So I don't see how it can be 10 lakhs. The CIF value cannot be 10 lakhs fees, as I mentioned, is 0.1% of your CIF value. So for 2.5 crores, the fees would be 25,000. There can be import recycled gold. It depends on the classification. Can recycled gold be classified under 7108? If it is converted into a certain purity standard, then it can be imported under 7108. Right? The application status. So, couple of points. Now, moving on, I'll just close this demo. That the application status can be tracked through the DGFT website. Additionally, DGFT also has a mobile app which was launched more than a year back. So you can have it installed on your phone, and thereafter you can log in with your credentials as on the DGFT website. From your mobile app, you can track the status of your applications. So currently, for the next 3 odd weeks, just search for DGFT on any of the platforms. You'll get the app. So for the next 3 odd weeks, your application will continue to be in progress. It's only after 31st of May that the actual examination of the application will start, and thereafter, based on the committee's decision, there will be a committee that will deliberate on this matter, and thereafter, we already have an SOP in place. So for the allocation part, the final allocation will depend on the total number of applications that we receive. The allocation would be pro rata. I mean, it will be in an equitable manner. The actual SOP will not be disclosed to the participants because that is internal to the Government of India. But what I can assure in this matter that it will be a fair and equitable distribution based on transparent principles, right? However, the SOP is not subject to scrutiny, so will not be disclosed to the participants. There's still some question on where to upload the GST return. It is part of the application process. If Raj, if you can once again share the screen. So draft measure draft. So there's this tab attachments under the apply for TRQ process, wherein you can select others and you can upload more than one documents. In this case, there's one document already uploaded. So click on upload, just select one of the documents and just upload it. So as you can see in this case, they've uploaded 3 specific documents. All of this can be seen over here. Once you do a save and next, it is part of your draft. The questions around maximum, minimum. See, I mean, we are basically government officers. You are the businessman, so it's for you to decide how much is your capacity, how much do you want, and as you would understand that there will be hundreds of applications, so there will be this whatever the quota is will be suitably distributed against all the applicants concerned in whatever formula that the committee, the broader consultation mechanism comes up with. As such, there is no rules around how much you can apply. If you already uploaded without, so basically starting from tomorrow, we'll start the examination of the applications. In cases where the applications are incomplete, we'll be raising a deficiency. And these, by what I mean by raising a deficiency is that we will be electronically issuing you a letter, and with that letter, the application will be sent back to you as deficient. So you will be once again be able to see the application over here in your under your dashboard. The file status will be deficient. So when you see that application is deficient, you can click on action and respond with. You can always edit that. Since this application is in progress, you don't have that option. You'll have the option of responding with corrections on the application. So that at that stage, you'll have the option of uploading the document that you've not uploaded earlier, and thereafter resubmit. So that entire exercise will also be initiated. Sufficient time would be provided. However, please respond to the deficiencies quickly. Lastly, whenever this file is being approved or deficiency is being raised, SMS and email alert is also triggered to keep you in the loop. So please ensure that the IC numbers, etc., as mentioned on your IC profile, like the mobile numbers as mentioned on your IC profile, are also correct, and your email address, so that you are intimated if there is any action from DGFT's end. So I hope I was able to address at least the procedural part, wherein the application process has been explained. Right. Now I'm sure there are a lot of questions around job work. As I mentioned, the job work thing is constrained by the IGCR rules. If the IGCR rules allow the job work to be considered, then there is no challenge on that. Next, we have this question: how will nominated agencies come to know? Nominated agencies are in the business of import, so it's their job. They will be collating, putting together the TRQs that they are receiving, and thereafter planning their imports. You can discuss this with the concerned banks accordingly before you. I mean, I'm sure as manufacturers, jewelers, you would have a tie-up with the concerned banks. You would have a lineup with the banks. You can discuss it and accordingly apply. The pricing will be done as is done in the in general. जो होता है मतलब कि जो CIF value होता है, the valuation का जो process होता है at customs. There's a question that there is a Mr. Balagupta has a total turnover of 25 crores in the last 2 years, but they don't have a turnover in this year. So basically, average of 25. So if you've done say 75 in just the last 1 year, you have met the average. So the idea is that if it is 0 and 30, 40, 35, so you have a total of 75. So you are eligible. The IDPMS system, the import settlement will be done by the nominated agency. The bill of entry will be filed by the nominated agency. So the IDPMS headache is for the nominated agency. The gold need to be re-exported. This question I've answered again and again, that this is strictly for domestic consumptions. If you wish to export it back, that's your call. But there is no export obligation that comes with this gold. So that 1% difference that you are getting is for you to keep or pass on to the consumer, the final consumer. Yes, so basically the customs duty payment by the nominated agency on your behalf has to be made at a duty differential of 1%. So again, the question on average turnover, it's basically simple math that average turnover of the last 3 years has to be 25. So if your company came into existence only last year and you've already done 75, you're still eligible. Last date to apply is 31st of May 2022. The imported gold has to be used only for the purposes of manufacturing. Yes, it cannot be used for traders because the purpose of the imports is manufacturing. Maybe at this point, the esteemed panel from GJEPC can also put in their views, because these rules is part of the consultative process. So there is a broader idea that is being implemented over here. GST returns last 3 odd years has to be provided as proof that you have done the required turnover. So I think I have covered a lot of bases. Request somebody.
Some of the members have asked that when they were applying before 10th of May, because the applications were invited from 5th of May, and perhaps till 10th of May, there was no column of nominated agencies in the TRQ application.
Yes, sir, we are aware. We were working.
So when they had filed that, they have not filed any name of nominated agency. So should they refile it or?
No, you don't have to refile it. There will be an additional cost or fees भी लग जाएगी उस case में. So इस case में as I mentioned, like somebody also mentioned कि उन्होंने upload नहीं किया documents. ये सारे applications हम लोग quickly examine करके इसमें deficiencies raise कर देंगे.
All
आप
right.
अपनी application को edit करके resubmit करेंगे.
Okay, that is good. So they will get time and a chance to resubmit if there is a deficiency.
Yes. We will provide suitable time, but the request is that, I mean, there is a sense of urgency around it. So जब deficiency raise होता है तो 1-2 दिन में आप respond करें. Don't keep it pending with you because the examination process will start somewhere in early June. So by that time, all this would have to be taken up.
Right. So that is clear that they should not file a fresh application.
Very clear. Yes.
Okay, good.
So Mr. Duggal, basically the question of job work, as you are aware that job work is treatment under IGCR.
Mohan sir, let me just add one thing here. See, in the public notice issued by DGFT, for allotment, there is no requirement of IGCR. IGCR is required only for the utilization of gold, which is imported.
Exactly. So
while applying, anybody who is dealing in jewelry, a retailer or a manufacturer or a wholesaler, anybody who deals in jewelry can apply. If I am correct.
Yes, but वही है कि उसको consume करना है. तो basically अगर आपको TRQ मिल गया and you're not able to fulfill the conditions, then it goes to right. I mean, I don't want to advise in that manner because there should not be subsequent complications with. It will definitely not be with DGFT, but with other government agencies, including the tax authorities. So please.
But इसमें सर एक थोड़ा ये change करना पड़ेगा.
Mr. Duggal, just 1 minute. Here, Mr. Afaq, what we are discussing is that during applying, we do not require to be manufacturer, etc. But here there is one column, what if I have noticed correctly, where you are telling that asking for factory details. Now that factory details, whether it will be a factory under the Factories Act or it will be just a shop or etc. That is another question what somebody has asked.
Yes, so we will not be verifying those details. This is only for statistical purposes. As I mentioned that you will have to be a manufacturer, whether a job worker, if you have a job work where you are outsourcing the manufacturing to somebody else is something that customs can comment on. Right. So in the end, what is important is that there's an actual user condition with these licenses. So the final TRQ allottee will have to consume it in some manner. That is the spirit of this notification, this public notice.
The second thing, what if somebody has asked that what is the maximum they can apply. So what I understand, here it is written in this union notification only that you can apply till you have utilized in the last 1 year. If I am correct, somewhere it is written that how much I have utilized, that is the maximum I can apply. And also that I do not know whether it is there or not. At the discussion stage, it was told that you will be allowed to apply maximum of 300 kilos in each quarter and 1.2 tons as a total. So just a clarification,
Yes. So Mr. Ray, basically, in the public notice that is issued, there are no ceilings or caps. An entity can apply for 500 odd as well. However, the final allotment will be based on the number of applications that come in. So there is no such, currently there is no cap of 300 or 500 like that. Also, there is no condition based on, in connection to what was imported in the previous year. Logically, yes, if you worked with a certain quantity in the last year, it will be around that, but there is no basic ceiling on how much you can apply. That is the actual, the textual position currently. What basis? So there's, yes. So over to you, the panelist from GJEPC.
Yes. So another issue, what a lot of people are asking is that let's say if they have applied for X quantity and against that your charges have been paid. So after that you have been allocated a Y quantity, which is lower than what he has applied, then whether the fees will be returned or not, because technically speaking, you understand that if I am applying for something, the fees were that, and I am not given that, so that technically speaking, that may be refunded. But what you have clarified is that no, that fee will not be refunded.
Yes. So this is an existing I mean, basically the fee structure as well as the refund process is notified under Appendix 2K of the foreign trade policy. As you understand that the fees goes into the Consolidated Fund of India, that is the Government of India Treasury head, and the rules are as well accordingly notified. So when we say fees, this is the processing fees. This is the user charges collected for examination of the application. This is not doesn't work like an airline where you are getting a seat or not getting a seat. Accordingly, your charges will be there. So what I'm trying to say that if you're getting, the fees will not be adjusted pro rata, that if suppose if you're getting a lesser allocation, then the differential will be refunded. And in cases where the application is rejected entirely, even in those cases, there is no provision for refund. So I hope that is clear. I mean, and this is a procedure, this is in place for all schemes cutting across, and the schemes, and for years earlier also.
It comes to the next question, that if suppose the fees, for the fees, the invoice will be available from the site itself.
Basically, the application process, you're applying to Government of India, so there is no GST being charged on the fees. So the invoice, but the payment receipt will be available on the website for if you want, if one of the applicants wants to print it and keep it as a record.
And of course, there are a lot of questions regarding the utilization, because as you have mentioned, I want to clarify for the the attendees that what DGFT had requested the government, that it should be for the actual user. Otherwise, what will happen, that a bullion dealer can just take all the gold, technically speaking, and they can trade it. So that is why it has been kept as an actual user, because of this manufacturer condition has come in. But we understand that this job work is a criterion. So we are requesting the government in that notification of customs to include the job work. Mr. Duggal can talk about this. Mr. Duggal, you can just brief us.
Okay. See, one of the conditions imposed by customs as well as even in the DGFT is that the importer has to comply with the IGCR rules. The IGCR rules require that the goods must be used only for manufacturing by the importer in his own manufacturing unit. But this order of IGCR rules was amended last year in the month of May in 2021, when they allowed job work to be done. But unfortunately, at that time also, they have allowed job work for all sectors except for jewelry. They have not included job work for gold. Now, as a council, we have represented to customs as well as to the Ministry of Commerce and DGFT that they should modify the IGCR rules to allow job work for jewelers, allow job work for gold imported for jewelers, so that 90% of our manufacturers who are in MSME sector categories, they all do their manufacturing on job work basis. They 90% are unorganized workers who carry gold from their suppliers to their units and work on that, make the jewelry. Somebody will do the polishing, the other will be doing the casting. They will pass on from one hand to another and then bring the final piece to their vendor. So job work is an important criteria in our sector, which we have requested to the authorities to allow in the IGCR rules. And we understand that it is under consideration and likely to be accepted.
Thank you. So I think this clarifies a lot of questions. And okay, as it is, we want to also clarify, of course, Mr. Afaq has already clarified, export, see, whatever gold you are getting at a concessional rate of duty under the TRQ, there is no obligation other than manufacturing and utilizing it. there is no obligation of exports. Also to apply, there is no obligation of being a member of the council or RCMC. So these two, I wanted to clarify because a lot of people have written and a lot of questions, advanced authorization, etc. coming. This is not a gold which is for exports. If you utilize, as Mr. Afaq has told, that is up to you. But there is no obligation for export again the concession, whatever you are getting here.
One more thing, I would like to say. I think this is for the first time that you are allowing a commodity to be imported by those who are not in international trade, have not been in the international trade. I mean to say that for the first time, somebody who has not handled export or import business is also eligible to import. So most of the jewelers, they wouldn't be even having the IEC code because they were not in the export import trade, they were just retailers or manufacturers. So they have to get the IEC code also. They are, maybe some of them are not even aware of the procedures. So one aspect where you mentioned that the value of the import has to be mentioned in the application. Suppose, and in our sector, the gold and the foreign currency, which is dollar, against which the gold is imported, both are very volatile. You would be aware in the last 1 week only, dollar has gone from 75 to 77. And so has the price of gold also gone from 1800 to almost 1870. What happens if the applicant writes a lesser value and by the time he imports the value has gone up? Will there be any effect on his application, or it will be just considered on the basis of the quantity which he has mentioned?
Right. So I see this as three parts. Okay, first is about the IEC. So IEC, if suppose there's a domestic manufacturer with a certain turnover and they don't have an IEC, so the IEC I can happily submit is an online automatic process. Abhi jaise, you just need to register on the DGFT website. You'll see a screen like this. This is an entity that we've just created wherein they don't have an IEC. So you click on the apply IEC. You fill in your details, the firm's details. Basic details are your PAN number, your bank details, and your address. So it can be a proprietor, partner, any one of them. Thereafter, once you submit the application after filling these details, your IEC will be automatically generated. So by that I mean that you don't need any officer's approval to get this done. So right now, the government of India, as part of ease of doing business and reducing compliance burden, has created a process wherein the IEC can be availed in half an hour. A new IEC can be generated in half an hour without any intervention by any specific officer or having for you to run to any office. Secondly, in the 2 hours after the issuance of the IEC will be reflected at customs because the final imports have to happen. So if suppose at the time currently being 12:10. So if you start the process now, by 3 o'clock today, you can start importing or exporting. Okay. That is the understanding there. And also we have various help under learn section. You have these application help and FAQs where you can access these details. Right. I mean, get some guidance on how to link, how to apply for IC stepwise details, FAQs. We have some videos also. So, so this is all part of the transformation that this Directorate and Department of Commerce has undergone to make the process, to deconstruct, demystify the process, to make it, simple and easy to absorb. We've also attempted some videos in Hindi, understanding that English is actually not the most used language of communication or trade. So going forward, you'll see more actions in that part. Secondly, the second part was the question. Sorry, somebody has anything to add? Okay. So second part was that if you don't have any imports, the number goes as 0. However, there is an additional column besides the imports, the turnover. So the turnover has to be stated correctly. So imports has to be 0. The third part of the question is the value. What has to be the value? Value is up to you. Value can always be on the higher side. There are no penalties that if you applied for an authorization of say 10 crores and you've only imported till 9 crores. Is the quantity that matters. logically speaking, if you've been allotted a quantity, you'll try to consume the maximum possible. So, however, the value can be on the higher side. That is not an issue. It should be around the ballpark. The per unit price, say maybe with a additional bump up of say 15% or 20% should be sufficient. I don't see fluctuations beyond that in the next odd 4 months. Right. So,
one last question from my side, Moin sir.
yes.
See, suppose an applicant applies for say 100 kg and you allot 100 kg to him.
Yes.
Is he required to utilize or manufacture this 100 kg in this particular 2 quarters only, or he can carry forward to the remaining part of the year?
So the imports have to be effected before 30th of September.
But he can manufacture later.
Yes, yes. The public, what the base document would be the public notice. We have not put any conditions as such that the consumption has to happen within the same quarter. Right.
And suppose you allot him 100 kg and for some reason he's able to import say only 80 kg and he's not able to import the remaining 20 kg in this quarter. So that will lapse.
Yes.
Okay. And suppose in the third quarter, he again has a requirement and he wants to apply again. Will his this condition of his having lapsed 20 kg affect his application in the next quarter, or that will be viewed as a fresh?
See, logically, we'd want the utilization to be the maximum possible. So I would reserve my comments at this point because there might be rules on if the utilization doesn't happen, then we like to incentivize that. So there might be some kind of adjustments in the subsequent quarters, but don't quote me on this matter.
No, well taken.
I'm giving you a logical basis that if
well taken.
Some importers some applicants might want to just corner it or might want to take a TRQ and not import, so that's to affect the prices or something like that.
I meant that only.
Yes.
Okay. Yes. Clear. Good.
Right.
There is one clarification I think Mr. Afaq I can make, because that it is in the box it has come. The turnover, somebody has asked that whether it can be distributed between export and domestic. Yes, it can be distributed. It all depends upon your GST returns, which also capture the export turnover. Am I correct, Mr. Afaq?
Yes, yes, definitely. So the turnover is inclusive of your exports. So yes, that is the thing. And once again, like this gold doesn't have to be used for exports. It is logically, like if you look at the maths, why would you want to export? Because you can always export against advance authorization where you'll get better duty benefits.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So I think
yes,
I tried my best to answer the questions.
No, thank you, Mr. Afaq. So yeah. I think that you can say the concluding words, and with that we should close this session.
So I'd like to open the desk to your good self to offer the concluding remarks, and I just like to state that I am available for any assistance in such matters. Coincidentally, I look after the e-governance process as well as some part of the import policy. This specific part has additional officers, so even on the technical front, if you see any challenges, the first point of contact would be the help desk. But if you don't find a suitable resolution, please feel free to escalate it through email or through phone to me. Mr. Ray, the floor is yours as the ED. I'll request you to kindly give the concluding remarks. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Afaq. And I think all of us who are there on the other side, our members and also the jewelers who are there and also other people who are there today who have attended, I think there cannot be more clarity into how DGFT has addressed all our queries. And I am happy to say that what Mr. Afaq has just mentioned, that they have tried to deconstruct the DGFT's approach and to make it very user friendly, because that is also one of the coinage of this government, is that to make it more business friendly, to see the procedures are more business friendly. So ease of doing business is the need of the hour, and that has been maintained when this entire thing has been designed. As you all have seen, that it is very user friendly, and they have tried. And also what Mr. Afaq has told, that beyond this also, if you're facing any issues, you can raise it up at the help desk. You can also write to him. He is the officer who is in charge of the entire thing. So we tried to bring to you the exact people who are in charge of this, and we hope that we are successful and we are successful in addressing all the queries. And thanks to the DGFT and thanks to Mr. Moin Afaq, thanks to Mr. Raj Bansal, who have taken all the pains to take us through this entire session. And in future also, we will follow with this session when more clarity will come, because this is a very new system. This has just now come. There will be queries as we go forward. And of course, we'll try to address that in future also. Thank you. Thank you to all from DGAPC. And I may take this liberty of thanking you from DGFT side also.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Oil
you,
and
DGFT, for organizing this webinar. Thanks. Okay.
Thanks. Thank you for very informative and useful webinar.
Thank you.